History is filled with great leaders who built empires and made wise choices. But it's also filled with rulers who made decisions so baffling, so utterly foolish, that they changed the course of history for the worse. Today, we're counting down 5 of the dumbest decisions ever made by ancient rulers. Number 5 on our list takes us to ancient Rome and the Emperor Caligula. Known for his eccentric and tyrannical behavior, Caligula made a series of bizarre choices, but one stands out for its sheer absurdity: his attempt to make his horse, Incitatus, a consul. Incitatus was no ordinary horse. He lived in a marble stable, wore a collar of precious jewels, and was served oats mixed with gold flakes. Caligula adored this horse, treating him better than most of the senators in Rome, but wanting to appoint him to the highest political office in the Republic was a step too far. The consulship was a position of immense power and prestige, held by 2 men who were effectively the heads of state. For Caligula to suggest his horse for the role was a profound insult to the Senate and the Roman people. It demonstrated his complete contempt for the traditions and institutions that had built Rome. While historians debate whether Caligula was genuinely insane, or if this was a calculated political move to mock and humiliate the senators he despised, the effect was the same. It eroded any remaining respect for his rule and painted him as a lunatic. This decision, among many others, fueled the conspiracy that led to his assassination in 41 AD. His reign lasted less than 4 years. A brief but chaotic chapter made infamous by his love for a horse and his disdain for his own people. It was a clear signal that the emperor was unfit to rule, a decision so dumb it became legendary. Coming in at number 4 is the disastrous decision by the Athenian assembly during the Peloponnesian War. In 415 BC, Athens was at the height of its power, but it was locked in a long and brutal war against its rival, Sparta. At this critical moment, the charismatic but reckless General Alcibiades proposed a bold and incredibly risky plan: a massive military expedition to Sicily. The idea was to conquer the powerful city-state of Syracuse, which was allied with Sparta's allies. The hope was that capturing Sicily would cut off Sparta from valuable resources and grain supplies, giving Athens a decisive advantage. On paper, it sounded like a genius move to some. The Athenian assembly, swayed by promises of immense wealth and glory, voted overwhelmingly in favor of the expedition. They assembled the largest and most expensive military force Athens had ever put together. Hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers set sail for Sicily, full of confidence. But the plan was a catastrophe from the very beginning. The expedition was poorly planned and faced logistical nightmares. Shortly after arriving, Alcibiades, the very man who championed the invasion, was recalled to Athens to face charges of impiety. Fearing for his life, he defected to Sparta, taking all his knowledge of the Athenian strategy with him. The Athenians, now leaderless and fighting on unfamiliar ground, were completely outmaneuvered by the Syracusans, who were now advised by Alcibiades himself. The once mighty Athenian fleet was trapped in the harbor of Syracuse and annihilated. Thousands of Athenian soldiers were killed or captured, with many of the survivors condemned to a slow, agonizing death in the stone quarries of Syracuse. The Sicilian expedition was a self-inflicted wound from which Athens never truly recovered. It drained its treasury, destroyed its navy, and shattered its morale, paving the way for its ultimate defeat by Sparta a decade later. It was a gamble so foolish it single-handedly crippled one of the greatest powers of the ancient world. Our third dumbest decision comes from the mighty Persian Empire and King Xerxes. In 480 BC, Xerxes decided to launch a massive invasion of Greece to avenge a previous Persian defeat and expand his empire. He assembled one of the largest armies the ancient world had ever seen. The Greek city-states were small and divided, and Xerxes was confident of an easy victory. His mistake wasn't the invasion itself, but a moment of pure hubris that defied nature and the gods. To get his massive army into Greece, Xerxes needed to cross the Hellespont, a narrow strait of water. He ordered his engineers to build a bridge of boats, a remarkable feat of engineering. But just as the bridge was completed, a powerful storm rolled in and destroyed it completely. Any reasonable ruler would have seen this as a setback, perhaps a bad omen, and simply ordered the bridge to be rebuilt. But Xerxes was not a reasonable ruler. Enraged that the sea had dared to defy his will, he made an incredibly foolish decision. He ordered the Hellespont itself to be punished. His soldiers were commanded to whip the water 300 times, throw chains into it, and brand it with hot irons, all while shouting insults at the sea. As if that wasn't enough, he also had the engineers who built the first bridge beheaded. This act was seen by the Greeks, and even by some of his own advisors, as the height of arrogance and impiety. In Greek culture, to challenge the gods and nature in such a way was to invite certain doom. While Xerxes did manage to build a second bridge and cross into Greece, his campaign was ultimately a failure. His navy was famously defeated at the Battle of Salamis, and his army was crushed at the Battle of Plataea, forcing a humiliating retreat. His decision to whip the sea became a symbol of his tyrannical pride, a story told by his enemies to show that Xerxes was a madman who thought he could command the very elements. It was a choice so dumb it became a timeless lesson about the dangers of hubris. For our number 2 spot, we traveled to China during the Qin dynasty, ruled by its first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. He is famous for unifying China, building the Great Wall, and for his terracotta army. But he was also obsessed with one thing: achieving immortality. This obsession led him to make one of the dumbest and most self-destructive decisions in history. The emperor surrounded himself with alchemists and sorcerers who promised him an elixir of life. He sent expeditions far and wide in search of mythical islands where immortals were said to live, all at a tremendous cost to the state. But his most foolish decision was to follow the advice of his court alchemists, who told him that mercury held the key to eternal life. They prepared pills for the emperor that contained pure, liquid mercury. According to the science of the time, mercury's unique properties being a liquid metal were thought to be magical and life-extending. We now know that mercury is a potent neurotoxin, incredibly poisonous to the human body. Ingesting it, even in small amounts, can lead to severe health problems, madness, and eventually death. The emperor, believing he was taking a potion for everlasting life, was actually poisoning himself daily. Historical texts describe his increasingly erratic behavior, paranoia, and fits of rage in his later years. These are all classic symptoms of mercury poisoning. Ironically, the very elixir of life he took to live forever is what likely killed him. Qin Shi Huang died at the age of 49, his quest for immortality ending in a painful, self-inflicted death. His empire, built on a brutal but effective system of control, crumbled just a few years after he was gone, plunging China into civil war. His dumb decision to trust pseudoscience over reason not only ended his own life, but also brought his powerful dynasty to a premature end. And now, for the number 1 dumbest decision by a ruler in ancient history. Emperor Honorius, of the Western Roman Empire, abandoning Rome. In the early 5th century AD, the Western Roman Empire was on the brink of collapse. It was threatened by internal decay and constant attacks from barbarian tribes. In 408 AD, the Visigoths, led by their king Alaric, marched into Italy and laid siege to the city of Rome. Rome was the heart of the empire, a symbol of its power and history for over 1,000 years. The people were starving, and the Senate was desperate. They pleaded with their emperor Honorius for help. And what did Honorius do? Absolutely nothing. The emperor had long since abandoned Rome as his capital, preferring the safety of the heavily fortified city of Ravenna on the coast. From his secure palace, surrounded by impassable marshes, Honorius refused to negotiate with Alaric or send any military aid to the besieged city. One famous story, possibly exaggerated but telling of his reputation, claims that when a messenger arrived in Ravenna and announced, "Rome has perished," the emperor burst into tears. But he wasn't crying for the city. He was crying for his favorite pet chicken, which he had also named Rome. When it was clarified that it was the city, not the chicken, that had fallen, he was reportedly relieved. This anecdote perfectly captures his utter detachment and incompetence as a ruler. In 410 AD, after a long siege, the gates of Rome were opened. And for the first time in 800 years, the city was sacked by a foreign enemy. Alaric's Visigoths plundered the city for 3 days. While the physical damage was not as catastrophic as some later sacks, the psychological impact was immense. The fall of Rome sent shock waves across the ancient world, It was a clear sign that the Western Roman Empire was broken beyond repair. Honorius's decision to do nothing, to value his own safety, and perhaps even his pets over the fate of his most important city, was the ultimate act of failed leadership. It was a dumb, cowardly decision that sealed Rome's fate and heralded the coming of the Dark Ages. From an emperor trying to make his horse a consul to another, poisoning himself in a quest for immortality, history teaches us that great power doesn't always come with great wisdom. What do you think was the dumbest decision? Let us know in the comments below. For more stories from our past, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for a